Prabhupakaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yotavadakavalan Sri Guran Vaishnavascha Sri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Si Vishagan Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagantpade Gopesha Govika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastade Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Bijavano Sade Devi Pranam Mani Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarubdascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam Kolam Nasteva Gattiranyata A reading from Jaiva Dharma. Fifth chapter. Bhari Bhakti is Nitya not Naimitika Dharma. So, Lahari Mashai's son and uncle, they want to see him and trying to bring him back to Shantipur, to their home. But Lahiri Mahashai is explaining his position and is able to convince his son also about the importance of performing devotional service properly and clearing some of his misconceptions. And he's bringing him to Vaishnav Das Babaji, who is speaking to him. So then he asked Vaishnav Das, asked Devi Das what he studied and explained to him. So Vaishnav Das. So then you have labored diligently in your study of the Shastra. Please give me a sample of what you have learned. Devi Das. Adyanta doka nivrittair eva mukti. The cessation of all material miseries is known as mukti. One should always endeavor to obtain mukti, which is defined in this statement from Sankhya Darshan. I'm seeking that liberation through faithful adherence to my prescribed duties, known as Swadharma. Vaishnav Das. Yes, I too, like yourself, once aspired for mukti after having studied all those books. Devidas, have you now given up the pursuit of mukti? Vaishnav Das. My dear son, tell me, what is the meaning of mukti? Devidas. According to Nyaya Shastra, the Jiva and Brahma are eternally distinct from each other. So it is not clear from the point of view of Nyaya how the cessation of all miseries can take place. According to the Vedanta, however, mukti refers to the attainment of non-differentiated Brahma, or in other words, the jiva's attainment of the state of oneness with Brahma. This is clear from one point of view, Vaishnava Das. My dear son, I studied Shankara's Vedanta commentary for 15 years, and I also remained a sannyasi for several years. I endeavored strenuously to attain mukti. I spent a long time deeply meditating upon what Shankara considered to be the four principal statements of the Shruti, Mahavakyas. Finally, I understood that the religious system that Shankara advocated was newly fashioned, so I gave it up. Mahavakyas, the famous statement which Shankara mentioned, Tattvamasya aham brahmasmi, and so on. I'm that absolute truth, I'm spirit. So, but Vaishnavas understood that this religious system by Shankara is newly fashioned. Devidas, did you consider it to be a recent and antagonistic view? Vaishnava Das, an experienced man cannot easily convey to others what he has realized through practical examination. How will those who have not experienced it be able to understand it? Devidas could see that Vaishnava Das was a learned scholar and that he was straightforward and deeply realized. Devidas had not studied Vedanta, and he began to think that he could do so if Vaishnava Das were merciful to him, so inquired, am I fit to study Vedanta? Vaishnava Das, with the level of competence you have achieved in the Sanskrit language, you can easily learn Vedanta if you get a qualified instructor. Devidas, if you will kindly teach me, I will study under you. Vaishnava Das, the fact is that I am a servant of the Vaishnavas. There is nothing for me besides this. Paramahamsa Babaji Maharaj has mercifully instructed me to chant Harinam constantly. And I am doing just that. I have so little time. Besides, Jagat Guru Sri Rupa Goswami has specifically forbidden the Vaishnavas to read or hear Shankara Shariraka Bhashya commentary on Vedanta. So I no longer read it myself or teach it to others. However, Sri Satyanandana, who is the original preceptor of the entire world, explained the true commentary on Vedanta Sutra to Sri Sarvabhauma. Many Vaishnavas still have handwritten copies of that commentary. If you want to study it, you can make a copy and I can help you understand it. You may ask for a copy from the house of Srimad Kavikarnapur in the village of Kanchanapali. Devidas, I will try. You're a great scholar of Vedanta. Please tell me frankly, will I be able to ascertain the true meaning of Vedanta by studying the Vaishnava commentary? Vaishnava Das. I've studied and taught the commentary of Shankara, and I've also studied Sri Ramanuja's Sri Bhasya and other commentaries as well. However, I have not seen any explanation of the sutras that is superior to Mahaprabhu's. This commentary was recorded by Gopinathacharya, and it is studied by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. There can be no doctrinal dispute in Bhagavan's own explanation of the sutras, for his commentary accurately represents the full import of the Upanishads. If one presents this explanation of the sutras in proper sequence, it is certain that his explanation will be respected in an assembly of learned scholars. Devidas Vidyaratna became very pleased to hear this. He faithfully offered Dandavat Pranam to Sri Vaishnavadas Babaji and returned to his father Kutir, where he related to his father what he had heard. Narayan Mahashaya was delighted and replied, Devi, you have acquired a great deal of education, but now you can try to attain the highest destination, which is the ultimate benefit for all living beings. Devidas, actually my sole purpose in coming was to take you home. Please return to our home just once and everyone will become satisfied. Mother is particularly anxious to have darshan of your feet once more. Now hear it. I have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas and I have pledged that I will never enter any house that is opposed to bhakti. First you will have to become Vaishnavas and then you can take me home. Devidas, Father, how can you say that? We worship the Lord every day at home. We don't disrespect the chanting of Harinam, and we receive guests and Vaishnavas cordially. Aren't we to be regarded as Vaishnavas? Now here, your activities are very similar to those of the Vaishnavas, but you are not actually Vaishnavas. Devidas, then how can one become a Vaishnav? So yes, so not so easy to become a Vaishnav. And here Lahiri Mahashaya is very frankly telling his son to become a Vaishnav, to understand that this is Vaishnav, and for his family also. Now hearing, you can become a Vaishnava by giving up your temporary Namika duties and adopting your eternal spiritual Dharma. Devidas, I have one doubt that I would ask you to resolve decisively. The activities of Vaishnavas consist of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Parasevanam, Achanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam and Atmanivedanam. And they are significantly connected with matter. So why aren't they also referred to as temporary, namitika? I perceive some partiality in this. Activities such as the service of the deities, fasting and worship with material ingredients are all connected with gross matter. So how can they be eternal? Lahiri, my son, also need a long time to understand this point. Try to understand this very carefully. There are two types of human beings, those whose interests are connected with this material world, aihika, and those who aspire for superior attainments in the future, paramarthik. Those in the first category only strive for material happiness, reputation and material prosperity. Those in the second category are of three types. Those who are devoted to the Ishvara, Ishanugata, those who are fixed in the pursuit of monistic knowledge aiming at liberation, Jnananishta, and those who covet mystic power, Siddhikami. So two kinds of human beings, basically, those who are interested in material life, sense gratification, basically, and those who aspire for spiritual attainment, paramarthik, arthik and paramarthik. So in the second one, Paramarthik, who are trying to attain a superior position, a spiritual position. So those who are worshipping the Lord, who are the foremost, and then those who are aiming at liberation, merging in the absolute truth, and those who are trying to get some mystic power, and those who are worshipping the super soul. The Siddhikarmis are attached to the fruits of karma kanda, and they desire to obtain supernatural powers by their performance of karma. The method which they adopt to obtain such unearthly powers are yajna, offering oblations, yajna, performing sacrifices, Ashtanga Yoga, the Eightfold Yoga system. They accept the existence of Ishvara, but they believe that he is subordinate to the laws of karma. This category includes the material scientists. So we can see here in this book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just so that everyone can have a clear understanding, he is repeating some points again and again. The Jnana-nishtas try to awaken their identity with Brahma by cultivating impersonal monistic knowledge. They don't know or care whether Ishvara exists or not, but they fabricate an imaginary form of Ishvara anyway for the purpose of practicing sadhana. The fruit of monistic knowledge is realizing one's identity with Brahma, and the monists aspire to attain this eventually by constantly engaging in the practice of bhakti directed towards their imaginary form of Ishvara. When they obtain the result of Jnana, they have no more use for the Ishvara that they have merely imagined as a means to achieve their end. So that is still there. Some Mayavadis, they may engage in devotional service in bhakti, and so they may do that because they feel that by doing that they may be able to attain perfection in merging in the impersonal Brahman. And so, because actually they see also that it is not easy not to think of anything, not to do anything. So sometimes some Mayavadis, they will do like that. So different kinds of Mayavadis are there. But those who are fortunate, they understand that actually that doesn't make complete sense, the Mayavad philosophy. Already that merging in nothing. And we can see in this material world there's so much variety. And to think that the spiritual realm has no variety, the Absolute has no variety, so that makes no sense, because that also it means that the material world is almost superior to that position, where there is variety here in the material world. So many activities are there. So how can then the Absolute Truth has no form, whereas there's so many forms in this world? So those who are fortunate, they can easily understand this. Okay. When they obtain the result of jnana, they have no more use for the Ishvara that they have merely imagined as a means to achieve their end. When the bhakti towards Ishvara bears its desired fruit, it is converted into jnana. According to this doctrine, neither Bhagavan nor Bhakti nor Bhagavan is eternal. So unfortunately, many persons, they are actually in this position. And they want to merge into the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth. Dishanugatas, those who are devoted to Ishvara, are the third category of those who seek higher attainments in the future, paramarthik. Factually speaking, they are the only ones who strive for paramartha, the highest goal of life. In their opinion, there is only one Ishvara who is without beginning or end and who manifests the jivas and the material world by his own potencies. The jivas are his eternal servants and remain so even after liberation. The eternal dharma of the jiva is to remain eternally under the guidance of Ishvara, for he can do nothing by his own strength. The jiva cannot obtain any eternal benefit by the performance of karma. However, when he submits himself to Sri Krishna's shelter, he obtains all perfection by his grace. So, So he is first explaining about Vaivadis and then about the devotees. And then about those striving for mystic perfection. Of course, even before he hinted at those striving for mystic perfection. Those who covet mystic powers, siddhikamis, follow karma kanda, and those who cultivate monistic knowledge, jnana nishta, follow jnana kanda. Dishanugatas are only devotees of Ishvara. The jnana kandis and karma kandis pride themselves on being interested in higher attainment, paramarthik. But in the reality, they are not pursuing the highest goal, but seeking temporary material gain. And whatever they say about dharma is naimittika. So as I explained before, so many persons are there, and even they may be following the Vedic literatures, as mentioned here, and then they have their conceptions. And so they may differ, or they may, to some extent, have some similarities to each other. But so ultimately, so they are not understanding the actual situation and the actual position of the jiva as eternal servant of Krishna. And that they are meant to serve Krishna, the Absolute Truth. So therefore, whatever they are presenting, so even though it may be in the name of Dharma, so that is naimittika, that is temporary. So that is actually a fact. Only Sanatana Dharma, Vaishnava Dharma, Paradharma, is Nitya Dharma, is eternal. Is the eternal constitutional position, nature of the living entity. So that is service to Bhagavan. with proper understanding, under the guidance of the pure devotee, the spiritual master. As explained before, even the Mayavadis sometimes they worship the deities temporarily, but not with the proper understanding. So proper understanding must be there. And then it is Nitya Dharma. So, that is a true Vaishnava, one who has proper understanding, one who is properly engaged in devotional service. Others may be known as materialistic devotees or semblance of devotees, may appear like devotees but are not truly devotees. The present-day worshippers of Shiva, Durga, Ganesh and Surya are known respectively as Shaivas, Shaktas, Ganapatyas and Chauras, and they all follow Jnanakanda. So in India there are many such persons who are worshipping either Shiva, Durga or Ganesh. Sometimes, of course, there are some people, they worship all of them, or they consider them all one. So many kinds of misconceptions are there, especially in Bharatvarsha, in India. And so many kind of philosophies, understandings they have. They create so many kinds of Dharma. They adopt the angas of bhakti, such as Shravan Kirtan, only to attain mukti, and ultimately the undifferentiated, impersonal, nirvishesh Brahma. So many of these persons, so they are Mayavadis, impersonalists. And you can see practically also. That is the position in this world nowadays. No proper understanding. But ultimately, so we all eternal servants of Krishna. And so we should be engaged in the service of Krishna. Jivara Swapari Krishna Ranitadas. That is our svabhav, that is our true nature. We are the eternal servant of Krishna. Those who engage in Shravan Kirtan without any desire for bhakti or bhukti or mukti are engaged in the service of Sri Vishnu. Among these five deities, the Srimurti of Bhagavan, Sri Vishnu, is eternal, transcendental and full of all potencies. Those who do not accept Bhagavan as the object of worship are merely worshipping temporary objects. So, the form of Vishnu is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. He is the Supreme Lord. Of course, there are many personalities of Godhead with different names. But ultimately, they're all expansions of Krishna. So I'm Bhagavan Sri Krishna, directly or indirectly. My son, the service that all of you render at home to the deity of Bhagavan is not paramarthik, because you do not accept the eternality of Bhagavan's form. So, although they are worshipping the form, but they are not accepting that Bhagavan is eternal. That is why you cannot be counted among the Ishanugatas. Now I hope that you have understood the difference between Nitya and Naimittika Upasana. To Upasana worship. So those who are worshipping Krishna or Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. So with proper understanding that I'm the servant of Krishna or Vishnu. And understand the eternal relationship between Krishna and the Jiva. So their worship is Nitya, is eternal, and everything else is Naimittika, temporary. Devidas, yes, if one worships the Shiva Vigraha or Bhagavan, but does not accept that Vigraha as eternal, then it is not worshipped, then it is not worship of an eternal object. However, can't one adopt the temporary means of worship to attain the eternal truth, which is ultimately distinct from any such temporary forms? Now, even if that were the case, such temporary worship cannot be called eternal Dharma. The worship of the eternal Vigraha as performed in Vaishnava Dharma is not Nitya Dharma. That's because the Archa Vigraha is eternal. The Archa Vigraha is not different from Krishna. But it is there present in that particular form because the ordinary sadhaka, transcendental aspirant, so is not qualified to see the actual form of the Lord. Therefore the Lord is agreeing to come by His own sweet will in this form made of matter, material elements, but then by His own sweet will the Lord and by the mercy of the Spirit Master who is praying for the Lord to be fully present, then the Lord becomes fully present in a particular form, which can be seen by the practicing devotee, and they can see, they can serve, and then there's an exchange, and then one becomes purified in consciousness, and then ultimately one can see Krishna as He is. So the Archa Vigraha is no different from the Lord. So that is mentioned in the scriptures. Even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna himself is speaking to Uddhava and explaining about the process of deity worship, which is very beneficial for the practicing transcendentalist, for the devotee. So without deity worship it is difficult to realize the beautiful form of the Lord. But Sri Vigraha that is worshipped is fashioned by a human being, so how can it be eternal? The Vigraha worshipped by the Vaishnava is not like that. Bhagavan is not formless like Brahma. On the contrary, he is the all-powerful concentrated embodiment of eternity. Knowledge on this. It is that Satyanananda Gana Vigraha that is the worshipable deity of the Vaishnavas. Bhagavan's transcendental form of eternity, bliss and knowledge is first revealed in the pure consciousness of the jiva, and then it is reflected in the mind. The external form of deity is fashioned according to this transcendental form revealed in the mind, and by the power of Bhakti Yoga, the Satchidananda form of Bhagavan that manifests in the deity. So first of all, so as explained here, that the pure devotees actually seeing Krishna. And then the pure devotee, so is desiring, let there be a temple, like our Srila Prabhupada. Let there be a temple in Vrindavan. So in his mind, Krishna is there, and then he wants Krishna to be worshipped here in Vrindavan. And then he sent his devotees, especially Jamuna, Devidasi, Mataji, to go to the persons in Jaipur who are making deities. And he told her also how the deity should look. And then, so she went there, and that's how it is. Then she's speaking to those who are making the deities, and actually those who are making the deities, they have been also trained to make the deities according to the instructions of the elders, the parents, grandparents, or father, grandfather, and so on, and which they have also learned from the instructions of the scriptures. How Krishna is looking, and so on. And so in which form then, or how exactly, so his hand posters should be there, or Krishna holding the flute and so on, Radharani, Nritya Mudra, or the Ashirvad Mudra, and so on, whatever it may be. So it is there in the mind of the pure devotee, and then the devotee, or those instructed by the pure devotee, they will go to the place where they're making the deities. And so the persons who are making the deities, they are also trained by their father or grandfather, forefathers. And according to that then, so the deities are made, and then Krishna becomes already manifest. But then the ceremony is performed, pran pratishta, and then at that time the deity becomes fully manifest. And that is by Krishna's own sweet will he's becoming manifest. That we should understand. So a combined effort of, or mercy of Krishna and the pure devotee, Krishna becomes manifest. In a form which we can see, in a form which we can then worship, and then there will be a reciprocation with the Lord. So there's a question, of course, of faith. Those who have been pious and performed some pious activities, so in pious consciousness, pious activities are performed. And then one may be able to understand this transcendental subject matter. Then one may be able to understand that. So the Archavigraha is no different from Krishna himself. And then also ultimately by the mercy of the Lord and the pure devotee, one can understand. When the devotee takes darshana with the deity, that deity unites with the transcendental form of Bhagavan that the devotee sees in his heart. So Prabhupada also used to say Krishna in the Archavigraha, Krishna in the heart, Krishna in Golok, and of course Krishna in the holy names, they're not different. And so by worshipping the deities, and then by chanting the holy names, then we may be able to perceive Krishna as he is, in the consciousness, in the heart. The deity that the Jnanis worship, however, is not like that. The deity that they think that the deity is a statue made of material elements, but that the state of Brahma is present in it while they are conducting their worship. And then it becomes a mere material statue again after they have finished their worship. Now we should consider the difference between these two conceptions of the deity and their respective methods of worship. So Mayavadis, they worship the form actually just to concentrate, as mentioned here, because to concentrate on nothing, to think of nothing is difficult. So have the deity and they can think of the deity and then worship the deity, but then they think that ultimately actually the absolute truth has no form. So worship the Brahma, the impersonal absolute truth within the deity. So, although they are accepted as transcendentalists, even the Mayavadis and those who do meditation on the Paramatma in the heart, but so they are not so fortunate to understand the absolute truth, even though the deity is present. So mostly, of course, they don't do any pran pratishtha for these deities. They just have the deities so they can focus, and then they meditate on the impersonal Brahman within the deity. So, and although they are accepted as transcendentalists, but they are very much inferior. So, and that is unfortunate for them. And ultimately they are going nowhere. They want to merge in the impersonal Brahman aspect of the absolute truth. And they may go there, but what is the use? There's no use. And they do nothing for millions of years and then have to come back again here. Because by nature everyone is a servant of Krishna and they have to serve Krishna. But not by force. But they should understand, and then with love they should worship Krishna. So, but it's explained in Bhagavatam, after many millions of years they may come back in this material world, and by good fortune then they may come in the association of the Vaishnavas, and then they may be able to understand the actual situation. When you obtain Vaishnava Diksha by the mercy of a genuine Guru, you will be able to correctly understand this difference by observing the results of both. Actually, those who are fortunate, those who are pious, Even the person who, even before taking initiation, an intelligent person may understand the difference between the Vaishnavas and the impersonalists. So, but by being under the guidance of a pure devotee then, and by then take initiation, then one can make more rapid advancement in devotional service. It is also mentioned that while chanting the holy names, one may advance in spiritual life. It doesn't wait for initiation, even for chanting the holy names. So one may chant the holy names, one may make advancement in spiritual life. But then ultimately one should be under the guidance of a pure devotee and take initiation. But that is also not everything. Not that now we got initiated, now that's it. No, but one has to then practice more. One has to ask questions, so one may be able to advance further. Doing this for considerable time, then one may be able to advance properly, and then one may be able to attain perfection. So Vaishnav Das had explained to Devi Das and also Lahiri Mahashai, and by good fortune then, so his son Devi Das could understand who is a Vaishnav and who is not a Vaishnav, what is Nitya Dharma, what is Naimitika Dharma. And yes, what is proper deity worship, what is improper deity worship, what is to be done and what is not to be done. So his misconceptions were cleared. So ultimately, of course, it is by the mercy of Hari Guru Vaishnav, by the mercy of the Lord, by the mercy of the spiritual master, the Vaishnavas, that one can understand things as they are. But then one has to apply oneself to the process of devotional service in order to realize the subject matter clearly, better, and in order to become successful in spiritual life. And so in order to actually realize one's transcendental form, Atmak Sakshakar, direct perception of the self, of the spiritual self. Spiritual self means it is not just the Atma. And as Mayavadis think also we are soul and then we merge in the Brahma. No, but the actual form is there of the Jiva. A spiritual form, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. And then the loving relationship is there with the Supreme Lord. This form is there, transcendental form, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Although the form of the Lord is looking similar, or his form is like, is human-like, and so it may seem just like the form of the devotee. If you see in Vaikuntha, the Lord has a four-arm form, and the servants also have four-arm form, and they're all effulgent and look very similar, but there's a difference there. and so which the pure devotees can see, can understand. And even in Krishna Lila, Krishna is there, his friends are there, and they're gopas, and they're playing together. And they look similar, but there's a difference. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and his friends are servants of the Supreme Lord. But there the relationship is more confidential, is more sweet. There's no own reverence, and that is relished by Krishna and the devotees also. So practical realization should be there of our existence in Vaikuntha or in Golok. Mostly now Sampradaya, so we understand that the devotees will go to Golok and Chaitanya Navadip to join the pastimes of Mahaprabhu and Krishna. So that form is human-like, like Krishna's. But, so it is transcendental, and better to say that, even according to the Bible, the human beings are like an image of the Lord. They look like the Lord, not that the Lord looks like us, but we look like the Lord. Even in conditioned state, like the human beings, the human form is there, male, female, and so that looks like the form of the Lord. But in this material world, it is material. In the spiritual world, it is spiritual. And in the spiritual world, so the form is there, and Satyanananda Vigraha, engaged in the service of the Lord, transcendental loving service. And the Lord looks like one of us. But the Lord is always transcendental. And He's unlimited, all powerful, all knowledgeable, the source of everything. But the amazing thing is that the pure devotees, they are not even they are not aware in the perfected state that Krishna is the Lord. Krishna is our friend. That is so wonderful. But as in Vaikuntha, the servants, they know that Vishnu is the Lord and we are the servants. He's eternal, we are eternal. In Golok, the relationship is very sweet. Very confidential. And amazing that the associates, they do not understand that Krishna is the Lord, the Supreme Lord. And that is by Yogamaya, by the internal potency. And they want to simply love Krishna in loving exchange. Not knowing that He's Supreme Lord. And the Lord doesn't want to even know Himself that He's the Supreme Lord. He wants to think, or He's thinking, I'm the friend of Sudam, Sridham. They are my friends. I'm the son of Maria Yashoda, and He's relishing that. And He's forgetting also that He's the Lord. Sometimes, but then in the past time, He understands that I'm the Supreme Lord. And these are my associates, these are my devotees. So it is Adbhut Krishna, Adbhut Lila. So wonderful Krishna, wonderful pastimes. So, and by engaging in devotional service and the proper guidance and proper association, then the practicing devotee, so you will come to understand his actual situation, the relationship. And everything becomes clear, quite clear. Of course, still, and even as a devotee, even a pure devotee, He does not know everything. One cannot know everything about Krishna. So many mysteries will be there. Something we can understand as much Krishna wants us to understand, that we can understand. But he's beyond the understanding of even the greatest devotee. At the same time, the scriptures are there and the opulences are mentioned of the Lord. And we can understand something, but that's all. But all this is wonderful. So, the spiritual manifestation of the Lord is wonderful, but even the material world, material manifestation is wonderful and almost inconceivable. So, but here by the mercy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur we can have some understanding. And so presented by Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada and his disciples, devotees. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Satchinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Sri Radha Shyama Sundar ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.